It's not your typical time in the Marine Corps. It was slightly troubled. Well, boot camp was easy, and infantry training was easy. But I had originally enlisted as a musician, particularly a clarinet player for the Marine Corps. And my intake interview that allowed me to join the Marine Corps as a clarinet player was somewhat flawed in that the gunnery sergeant who conducted my initial audition was kind of a clown. He passed me when I definitely should not have been passed, and said that I would not have a problem picking up music school, and I, not really having any experience with clarinet playing aside from high school band level, didn't really expect it to be all that intense, but I was quite wrong. So after infantry training and arriving in music school, where I spent 6 months, I had a pretty miserable time. The level of musical instrument playing that they had there was somewhere along the lines of college level bachelorate to doctorate level music playing, which is really, really more intense than I was at high school level, having not played clarinet for all 4 years of high school. I only played clarinet for 1. So I was failing out of my school, and it felt like my entire life was falling apart, and there were not very many support areas that I could fall back to, because all that we did all day was play our instruments, and their remedy for people who were not up to par playing their instruments was to make them play their instruments more. So I ended up having to go to school for 8 hours a day, and then usually I ended up practicing in a room by myself for about 10 hours a day, not counting, breaks for food and whatnot. So I was underslept and treated pretty poorly. So needless to say, it didn't end well. I was put in a naval psychiatric facility for observation several times, because I was quite done with that place. Eventually they dropped me and I got reclassed as admin. Admin is the MOS in the Marine Corps that is where anybody who fails out of their original MOS school gets sent. So it's not a very fun MOS, and nobody ever picks it. So the school was ridiculously easy. Me being a person of at least above average intelligence, passed it with flying colors. The choice then was laid upon me to choose where I got sent. I had 3 options: East Coast, West Coast, and overseas, and I chose overseas because I thought that it would be a good time, but that was a bad mistake. I got sent to the Marine Corps base in Okinawa, Japan. And there were many politics at play in Okinawa. Mainly, there were far fewer officers and far harsher treatment of the enlisted Marines that lived there, and were stationed on those bases. So combined with my already shitty experience with music school, being in admin and living in Japan with the stress of being active duty in the military in a country at the time of war, and being worked 18 hours a day, sometimes, having to work 7 or 6 days a week, I cracked, and I started not taking all the shit that I was supposed to be taking from my superiors. The Marine Corps has a lot of head games that you're required to play, and when you don't play along with the mentality, they start to get upset with you, and when they get upset with you, they start to do unfair things, like rather than try and address the issue or assist you through the transition, they try and force you to act the way that they want you to act by punishing you, and that is not a good way to get me to respond, and it's not a good way to get anybody to respond, really, but some people conform. I did not. So in the end, I was discharged after 2 years in the military by being given an administrative separation rather than a normal discharge, which is kind of their way of backdooring people out of the Marine Corps. They diagnosed me with personality disorders after I saw a psychiatrist one time. two specific diagnostics. One was narcissistic personality disorder, because I didn't, do whatever they told me to do, and the other one was borderline personality disorder, both of which are very serious personality disorders, and any psychiatrist that has ever been to any psychiatry school, or any person who has ever had an introductory psychology class can tell you that I am neither of those things. But that was what it was, and I was not afforded the due process that you normally get when diagnosed with military separating disorders such as those, and I was sent home shortly after being diagnosed with these supposed personality disorders. My feelings on the Marine Corps are probably less than the average Marine, although I was not in for a full 4 years. I feel that I had a pretty characterful, I think is the word I want to use there, time in the Marine Corps. I personally would strongly discourage anybody from joining the military, not because they treat you poorly, or they overwork you and undervalue you, or the fact that it is probably the most thankless job that you could ever have, but more so because it's not what you expect it to be. It's not all honor, courage, and commitment. It is a giant politics game, and there is more buddy fucking that goes on in the Marine Corps than you could possibly imagine.